talk about that later on.
You've got a fan base here then.
The hype train has left the station.
How old did you say this was?
12 years.
12 years, yeah.
Man, it is good. We just threw all of that on the floor, and this man has no regard for safety. He is not wearing shoes. He could go down while using it.
And John's dead. Wow. That didn't take long at all, but I'm sure he'll come back. Well, happy Tuesday, everybody. Thank you for joining us, and welcome to Weekly Whiskey here. It is another Tuesday night. We have another great live stream for you. We have a little bit of a late, I'd say a last-minute audible, but we're here to have a good time tonight. How are you doing, my friend? Good to see you, John.
Doing excellent. Yeah, I mean, we're here for a quick adjustment on the fly, but not a big deal. Not that we can't handle. I mean, we still got great whiskey to drink, so...
Yeah, we got the goods, brother. If you guys are tuning in originally, you would have expected Blake Rebert from Seelbach and Bourboner. He's out, a little last minute sickness. It's all good. Everything happens. But tonight we're going to shift gears a little bit. We're still going to talk about what you're here to listen, what you're here interested in. Omaha, very nice.
Well played.
But before we get to that, before we get to this fun golden wax that I have in my hand, let's hit on a couple of barrel updates. I believe last week was a fun week. Our Smooth Ambler went on out. That was a 5-year MGP Smooth Ambler. This year we have a Hughes Belle of Bedford. That's a 9-year barrel proof rye that is selling out. Next week will be the week finally that we get that Wild Turkey Kentucky Spirit. That is a Camp Nelson. That is a Tyrone A, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a couple of weeks that has been lost to distro, so it's getting kind of hazy. I've been calling it Phantom Bird these last couple of weeks because it technically...
The ghost.
Technically it exists. I know technically is the worst form of correct, but like technically it exists, but I can't have it yet. So that's been a good time. But next week, yeah, I mean, we're into September now. September's going to be crazy. We have our 3 Old Elk coming. Really, really fun. If you guys know where to find the info on barrels, the stickers are already up. So go ahead and check out that artwork. If not, we'll keep it a surprise for everybody else waiting at home. And man, we got about 35 more barrels to get us through the last 20 weeks here. So plenty of whiskey coming on up.
Plenty of whiskey, yeah.
Yeah, plenty of whiskey. I'm pretty pumped about these. This Kentucky Spirit has been long in the tooth, but I think that wraps on up barrel updates for this week. I think so. Yeah, it's pretty good. So what are we drinking tonight, John?
Yeah, let's dig in here. We got the brand new Seelbach Private Reserve. This is what we've been lovingly calling the French Toast Bourbon. This is a blend of 2.5 year and slightly over 10-year MGP bourbon. These were finished in a combination of toasted French oak barrels and maple syrup bourbon barrels. So you get a little bit of your maple syrup on your French toast, which I think probably works nicely. Let's see.
Yeah, for everyone at home, I've been giving Blake kind of fun. I like to call this the French Toast Factory of Flavor. There's a lot going on. If you've had things like Maker's Mark 46, you've definitely experienced that French oak kind of contribution. If you've had, I can't think of many things lately that are really kind of capitalizing on a maple syrup barrel. So maple syrup doesn't get aged typically. So we're taking a used bourbon barrel or rye barrel, but in this case, bourbon barrel, filling it up with maple syrup, dumping out the maple syrup, refilling it with whiskey to give it a nice finish. And those two things were married, I believe, at 50%, 50%. So 50% of that French oak,
right,
which comes from, 3 barrels of the 2.5 year, 3 barrels of the 10 year. Those are blended, then split in half. Half goes into the French oak, half goes into the maple, recombined, bottled at 57.7% ABV. So nothing to sneeze at. Some nice golden wax for you fans of all things French toast. And there was about 1,000 bottles of this. 1,040, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so the overall blend of the 2.5 year to 10 year was a 66% to 34% in favor of the 2 year. So this is predominantly a younger product. But after the marrying together and then cask finishing and blending, we should have a pretty unique product overall.
Mm.
On the nose here, so I'm just going to start digging in.
Yeah, go for it.
On the nose, right up, the youth is there. I do notice that from the younger component, the 2.5-year whiskey. It's not off-putting though. It's not like a harsh, grainy, astringent. It's like not it's not turning me away. There's also some pretty good layers of almost like a little bit of you ever get the chocolate truffles that have like a little bit of the cocoa dust on the outside of them? Something like a little bit of that like dark, rich cocoa dust going on in there. A little bit of sweetness from that maple.
Okay.
I'm very pleasantly surprised that it is not like a real life maple experience here, because I'm not like, so I like maple syrup, all right. I like to cook with it, I like to have it in things, but I don't like things that are flavored with maple.
Sure.
Like when they put that on bacon or in sausage or things like that, like anything that's maple flavored, I tend to kind of shy away from. I don't really go for that.
Okay.
And so this isn't being driven by maple, which I could appreciate. I dig that.
Yeah, I have to admit, I was a little, I wouldn't say concerned, but I was extremely curious how strong that maple character was going to come through. I was really, we know what French oak does. We've seen tons of French oak in American whiskey lately. We know how dominant, aggressive, how porous and, impactful it is, but I can't think of much I've had in maple syrup. So I was kind of curious if this was going to toe that line of just being pure dessert, just pure maple sweetness over everything else.
Right. Yeah, I mean, sort of in the way that like Belmead honey, you could like if you hadn't had that before and you were going into, you might be really scared that like this is going to be a sugar bomb, like which I don't think it is, but
no,
there's a lot of things like that when you hear what it is, you kind of get scared off because you start thinking like maple flavored whiskey or something, and that sounds disgusting and awful. So putting things into perspective here, I'm happy with the combination of the way it's articulated on the label and the way it comes out in the glass. I think that's a good way to sort of wrap up my thoughts on the going into the nose here.
Yeah, and for everyone, if you were unable to score a bottle, this is the Seelbach Private Reserve once more, but it's listed as a straight bourbon whiskey. There's a nice space there so people know that it's finished in toasted French oak and maple syrup barrels. So there's no, this isn't, they're not calling it maple syrup bourbon or something, which is good in my book. That is the way, if you're going to finish whiskey, that is absolutely the way to do it.
Correct. Joel actually asked about a particular abomination. What about the McGriddle? The McGriddle can get out.
I am a shameless
That's all I've got to say about that.
If I am experiencing what I would call evil after like a wedding or a late night private tasting, if I'm experiencing evil the next day, better known as the old hangover, I'm a McGriddle is 100% where I'm going every time.
No, that's ridiculous. You need to get out.
2 of them.
Unacceptable.
You're a Dunkin' guy, aren't you?
Well, yeah, that's just because I live in New England, though. Not that the food at Dunkin's good, because it's not.
No, but I mean, you at least have the embrace of like a flatbread. Are they still doing those?
I don't know. Maybe.
Well, okay. Well, we got to talk about your hangover choices, because if you're not eating, I don't know how you do it.
Well, I mean, you should be starting off with the biggest bucket of coffee you can get your hands on. And then probably putting whiskey in said coffee.
Oh, God.
McGriddles are not great. Get out.
No.
Get
okay.
out.
All right. So we quickly are finding ourselves in a war between the McGriddle camp.
Well, this is what happens when you have French Toast Bourbon on the show.
I mean, Blake is on the record as saying what happens if we ended up with a bourbon that tasted like French toast. So these are the kind of things that you have to grapple with once you open this Pandora's box. Is McGriddle at this point we may as well have an adjunct like an imperial stout with McGriddles added, but for the bourbon world.
All the way. Get out. Go home.
All right. Well,
lines have been crossed here tonight on Weekly Whiskey.
Lines are crossed. That's why they exist, to be crossing. Anyways, I'm giving this a quick taste. I find that this is actually less maple forward than that Conic double barrel maple bourbon. Those are very, 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 very mapley. I like them. I think that Taconic is definitely using maple to cover the overall youth because there isn't that older component. I get really big like toffee praline notes, maple brown sugar, kind of demerara if you're using like from a cocktail base. It's kind of rummy almost on the nose, but
Yeah, I
on
can
the
see the
palate.
Demerara for sure.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
okay. I wouldn't have thought about it in a rum type of way, but there was like a little bit of yeah, maybe like a rum vibe to it with that extra sugar content in there.
Yeah, it's sweet, it's desserty. It's not like
Yeah.
sweet or dosed or like overly sweet. I noticed the youth on the palate more than I think you notice it on the nose. The nose for me, fairly well integrated. A little bit of like green wood note on the palate, but then we get
Mhm.
that nice old integrated oak, pepper, tobacco, spice, and then that maple is carrying us right off. So
Yeah.
I think the French toast is actually a good touch here. It's adding a lot of spice. So if you like a spicy bourbon, this is perfect for you. If you like a little bit of sweetness on the tail end, that's when the maple's coming in. But overall, I like that it almost has chapters to it. At first you
Yeah.
have a younger, a little bit hotter bourbon. Then you've got this big spice note, almost espresso. And then in the back palate, you've got nice sweet maple, demerara, kind of a rummy raisin cake almost on the back palate and going into the finish.
Yeah, I can see the fruity side of it for sure. There's like this touch of the syrup from the inside of like a chocolate covered cherry kind of going on, and not quite like not full into the amaretto world where like there's none of the
Yeah,
almond side to it, but it's sort of like that rich cherry syrup a little bit in there. I could see that.
absolutely. I like that you called out the amaretto because this is very much almost bordering on cherry cordial for me without going
Yeah.
full like amaretto cherry. Great question from Joel in the audience. I like the 2 year. I think the 2 year actually brings some sprightliness. I think that if you were to ask my preference beforehand, I probably would have gone more 50-50 or been like, hey, why wouldn't we pay $300 a bottle and do all 10
Right.
year? But I like this is pretty daring. This takes risks pretty much left and right as far as I'm concerned. Like, if you have 10-year whiskey and you're like, oh, let's blend it with 2 year, you are doing that extremely deliberately. Like nobody I know is just mixing 10-year and 2 year because they're like, oh, let's just see what happens, So
Right.
I think
No,
it's
the closest
deliberate.
thing that I think we've had to this on the show to this point would be the Freeland Spirits bourbon, which was
Yeah.
using very similar distillate, but it was a blend of 4 and 12. And honestly, I don't know as this averages out much different than that in terms of where the youth stands. So I think the 2 year, or well, 2.5 year, whatever you want to call it. Technically, it's 2.5, but like you said earlier, technically is the worst type of correct. Being what we could just call a young whiskey as a majority part of this blend, it does work. And I think that French oak is a real kick. Why? I mean, you get like this spicy nutmeg, touch of cocoa type of thing going on with it. I mean, this really does work. I know it's not marketed as French toast bourbon, but holy shit, does that like make more and more sense as I go through this? The answer is yes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't call this the French toast factory of flavor for nothing. Like, if you are concerned that this will be bland, taste
No,
young and saplingy, or just like overall hot and kind of flavorless, you don't have any concerns.
no. This checks off a lot of boxes. It does have that espresso note too. Like, I don't get the tobacco that I heard you say there earlier, but it does come through with like this massive array of like the whole buffet is in there, man. Like there is a little bit of this espresso. There's some fruit layered in there. The the youth is in there for sure. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying like this is like a 10-year MGP all day. It's going to be like this heavy flavor bomb because while it does have tons of, which I think was a great term, ton of chapters to it. There's a lot going on here. A great color, good mouthfeel. There's a lot of things going on. There is still youth to it. So if you're 100% adverse on anything that tastes like it's not, 6+ years, this might scratch a different itch than what you're looking for. But man, there's a lot in here.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I'm thinking about this. This is kind of like a cup of nice espresso next to a plate of French toast next to like a nice Danish to see the day out. Like a nice cream cheese Danish.
And then to go like right to a nap.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm going going to bed right after breakfast like that. But
Yeah,
we all knew that anyways.
This is a half decent breakfast whiskey, though, for sure. Now that
And
we're on the breakfast and whiskey train.
yeah, I mean, I mean, if you're gonna have whiskey for breakfast, what better way than a 57% ABV? I mean, this rounds up to 58. This is 57.7. That is nothing to sneeze at. And this does not drink for the proof at all. Like I get a little bit of heat,
No.
mostly in the French oak spice. So I don't want people to be confused. This isn't hot because it's young. It's not hot because the ethanol is really high. It's got some big spice character. That's definitely that French oak popping through. But I would not know that this was 58% all day. And if I poured too much of this in the old espresso, the nap might start before breakfast even finishes. But I'm into it.
Yeah. No, this is nice. I just got a really good kick of vanilla too after that last sip, which really kind of just rounded everything out for me.
That's good. I like it. I think this is probably the most daring blend we've seen. Have you had any other? I'm trying to think. I know we've got friends who have tried some crazy finishes lately, but in the world of finished whiskey, where does this kind of stack up for you? Are you a fan of finished stuff normally? Are you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've been beating that drum all year long. I mean, the blended stuff, the finished stuff, like we've been really, really hitting that up. And I think this is very close to being up there with the likes of some of the stuff that we've had from Barrel, which I think Barrel Craft Spirits, what they're doing is on a whole different plane. Nobody is at their level in terms of coming up with just like a roundhouse kick of flavors. And this is rapidly approaching that for something that, I mean, this is the first Seelbach's Private Reserve. This is like their foray into the world of any type of bottling, really, but let alone something that's blended and finished. Like there's a lot of steps in this, and I think it's been pretty gracefully done.
Absolutely. I mean, I've said it a couple times, a lot of risks here. It would have been really easy to be like, our first bottling, let's just do 300 bottles of 10-year MGP. We'll give it some fancy label. We'll try and convince people that, there's really amazing MGP out there, but at the end of the day, it's MGP. Like, what you're going to get. There's probably 6 or so different profiles from MGP bourbon you can expect. So hats off, for this was probably the least safe way to do a release, if I had to guess.
Really.
You could have taken that 10-year, sold it at a huge premium, taken that 2-year, finished in maple syrup, sold it for $60. But I think this is cool. There's nothing else I can think of that's like it. Blake is a friend of the show for sure, but if something isn't good, we're not afraid to mention that it needs more time. But this is certainly one of the most unique products we've had all year. And it's unique because it works. It's not like, bad unique, but it actually works. And like, I can't imagine how much sampling went into this to get each of those components at the right time, between the blending of the ages, the finishing cast, the blending of the finishing cast once they're done. That's nothing short of work, even though you're drinking whiskey.
Totally. I mean, think about the handful of times that Blake has been on the show this year, and he sent us things that we've never heard of, whether it was, bourbon finish in Nocino, or, just like some wild thing that he's been excited about, and he sent to us that whether we rate them positively or not, we get to try these crazy things. And then it sort of puts together this Rolodex of flavors. And then you come back around to, hey, holy shit, Blake has finally put together this product, and we're going to give it a spin. Let's see what it's like. Because, I mean, this is a man who is dabbling in all manner of craft spirits.
It's funny because he's
done here is pretty cool.
He razzes me sometimes, and he's like, man, I don't know how you get anything done with trying all these weird spirits. And I turn around, I'm like, buddy, you put whiskey in Nocino casks, like you're doing French toast stuff. Like, who are you to talk? Like, you're seeing just as much of the flavor world as I can. And I'll admit that Nocino finish watershed, that thing was so hot it seared my eyebrows off. It was a fun time, but
that thing was crazy.
It was so potent. It's so much fun, but this is much more an exercise in like balance and understanding what everything needs to add for like the perfect like symphony kind of, painting, whatever weird allegory you want to draw. But it works out. If you like French toast, if you like French Toast Crunch, the cereal, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, check it out. If you bought one already, because it's sold out.
Yeah, if you didn't, then shit, sorry.
Batch 2, baby.
Yeah, wait for the next one, because these are definitely fun.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, $99, a little bit steep, but when you think about just at just the end of the day, how much labor goes into something like this, really easy to see. on top of cask management of 6 different casks and different finishing casks and dumping, bottling, aging. Seelbach does not own a rick house. They don't own a bonded space. So, that's happening. They got to pay someone for that space. It all makes sense. A lot of work.
Yeah. Ton of overhead too.
Maple syrup ain't cheap. You're in the Northeast, you know it. I used to live in Connecticut. Maple syrup was like gold, even if it came out of the tree right next to you.
Yeah, I actually did that. Put some taps in the trees. Been down that road. It's a interesting endeavor.
I always thought that'd be for me. Like someday I'll grow up and I'll have a bunch of maple syrup trees. But I grew up and I live in Wisconsin where maple is still pretty plentiful, and I just keep buying cheese and booze instead.
Yeah, good to get those brats.
But anyways, I think that's probably the maple farmer in us is probably a good way to sign off here. Do you have any final thoughts here, John?
No, I dig this. I think I'm pleasantly surprised. I really thought that this would run the risk of being something that was too far into the maple world, or just would be a young whiskey that was hiding behind maple, which it's not. I mean, this is blended nicely, and I'm pretty impressed with it overall.
Good. Well, my biggest concern, or not concern, my biggest curiosity was whether the maple would be to cover up youth notes or if it would be a tried and true component. I'm happy to say I think that it's an actual component here. It's just one small piece of a really big picture. And I like it so far. I'll give it a thumbs up. I wouldn't say I put a huge dent, but this came just the other day, and I'm only on, glass 3 or 4. So I'm really looking forward to see how it opens up. But so far, I'm a fan.
100%.
Cool, man. Well, if you guys went ahead and picked this up, please let us know in the comments. If you're drinking something else, let us know as well. Once again, this is Seelbach's Private Reserve. So this is the very first batch, yielded about 1,000 bottles. I like to think that some of you out there probably grabbed it as well, since I know a lot of us cross paths. We talk, quite frequently. We see you in the show. We see you in the show notes. But if you got it, let us know. Drop it down in the comments. If you're looking for more from John, you can find him over at the Bourbon Finder. He's on Instagram and his website. We're here every Tuesday night and every Thursday for after hours as well. I am Jay from Whiskey Raiders. We are the Rotten Tomatoes of whiskey. You can expect a review up of this soon enough. And if you like what you're doing here at Weekly Whiskey, go ahead and hop on over to patreon.com/thewhiskeynet. You can check out everything we're doing. Plot twist, we just dropped a pretty big announcement, but it won't hit the public for a little bit longer. Pretty excited about that. We have a jam-packed fall, and in the meantime, we'll be here drinking more whiskey. So find us on Tuesday nights live, Thursday nights, I guess Thursday mornings. You could watch it tonight, but it drops Thursday mornings for Weekly Whiskey After Hours. We have some fun. There's some shenanigans there, and we've got a little content here and there. So thanks for joining us, guys. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.